Okay, so let's begin. So when you are a beginner, you are something like this. Like your answers, they are not properly arranged to meet the demand of the question. Your ideas are not that well organized, and then after you attempt a couple of answers, they start gaining some structure. Your thoughts, your line of structuring an answer, what to write, what not to write in an answer, gets streamlined somewhat, and then as you continue with practice they get more streamlined, and then with regular practice and continuous feedback on your answers they take the shape of a marks fetching answer. So our intention is to score maximum marks in an answer. You don't have to be a sociological thinker or an expert in that very topic. Even with basic knowledge, you can optimize your presentation in a way that fetches you maximum marks. So, what all we'll be discussing in this session. So, first of all, we'll be discussing the right approach to a question. So, there could be many paths or many lines of thought that would cross your mind when you see a particular question. But what is that one line of thought that will fetch you good mark in an question? So, we will discuss about that in detail. Secondly, we will discuss what not to write in an answer. So suppose in a 10 marker question, you have 150 words and around 1.5 to 2 page size only. So, and there would be a lot of content that you might have read on that topic. So we will try and see how to incorporate limited content in a coherent manner. Third is content alignment. So every question has a particular theme. Your answer should be aligned with that theme. So if this part is the question, this part is your answer, and that is where alignment matters. So all these things might sound very theoretical to you. So let's see with the help of an actual example what do all these mean. So let's take a question right away. I mean, let's not talk in the air for a prolonged amount of time. It won't make much sense to you. So the question is discuss the scope of sociology in addressing the multifarious challenges thrown by the pandemic. So whenever you see the question, please read it with a calm and composed mind. So what many candidates do is they tend to quickly jump to writing the answer. So that's not a good practice. So even if it takes a few extra seconds, please read them patiently and try to find out the key words of the question. So in this case, the keywords are the scope of sociology, one, and the challenges thrown by the pandemic, two. So these are the main demands of the question. You have to link scope of sociology to the challenges thrown by the pandemic. So how to go about this question? So first of all, let's see some live examples of what candidates have written in this question. So let's talk about the introduction first. So this is an answer in from our existing answer writing program. The candidate has written about the pandemic is the disease with large geographical spread, high level of fatality, and then the candidate makes a reference to the scope of sociology. So since this is a 10 marker question, you don't have enough space and time to talk about what is the pandemic, the geographical spread, fatality, etc. So this might not be the best approach to start an answer to this question. So let's take a look at the next slide. So this is another introduction that reads scope of sociology is largely the debate between French sociological tradition and German sociological tradition. So the debate around scope of sociology is not the theme of the question. The theme of the question is how the scope of sociology can be interlinked to a contemporary issue, and this contemporary issue is challenges of the pandemic. Okay, so again, this is again not the best way to introduce this answer. Yes, so this seems to be a good introduction, a good way to start this answer. There is a name of a thinker, and then it goes on to say sociological studies classifies all forms of social relationship and analyzes the relationship between individual and the society. So this can be one way to start off this answer. So what does sociology actually study in general? So it also studies the relationship between an individual and the society. And the pandemic is also a social problem which affects individuals in the society. That's why um, this introduction sets the context of the answer. So it gives you a sense of what the candidate would write in the body and conclusion of the answer. So this is one good way to start off this answer. Next, let's move on to the body of the answer now. So after introduction, you have introduced what is meant by the scope of sociology. So then comes the body of the answer. The body in you have to talk about the challenges of the pandemic and link it to the scope of sociology. So the heading of this body of the answer makes a reference to both keywords or key phrases mentioned in the question. So it always keeps your answer aligned with the actual demand of the question. And what are the subheadings of the answer? Impact on the individual, impact on social groups, impact on social institutions, impact on social processes. So all these come under the scope of sociology. Sociology studies all this. So for each subheading, you can explain how the pandemic posits a challenge to these social institutions, social groups, etc. And then how sociology studies those challenges and then tries to find a solution to those problems. Let's go to the next slide. This is approach 2 of writing the body of the answer. So, scope of sociology also it entails social morphology, social control. See how this answer um, writes a very relevant example. Like sociology also studies the different forms of social controls in society, right? So um, informal control like denying a family membership to go out sometimes creates a conflict situation in social institutions. This answer talks about social morphology, social control, and it gives a very relevant example for social control. So, for everything you mention, please try to incorporate the relevant examples. Again, it talks about social processes and see the challenges that is mentioned for each type of social processes. So if you incorporate these minute aspects, it reflects your conceptual clarity and the understanding of the issue. Similarly, social pathology and how these social pathologies are related to the pandemic and how sociology can help address these pathologies. This is approach 3 of this answer. So this is another good way of representing the body of this answer in the sense that in column 1, the challenges thrown by the pandemic is mentioned, the challenges faced by different sections of the society, and in column 2, for each challenge, how sociology can help in addressing those challenges. So, this way of representation directly meets the actual demand of the question, and it very clearly mentions the keywords of the question, the challenges thrown by the pandemic, and linking it to the scope of sociology. So, this is the third approach and a very good approach to this question particularly. Uh, Now we will talk about the minor mistakes that can cost you precious marks in your answer. So if you closely observe here, it is written Parson, but the correct name is Parsons. So spelling mistakes in the name of thinkers is a big no. Never make a mistake. It is akin to a blunder in your sociology answer, because it is expected that since thinkers section is the backbone of your sociology syllabus, and if you commit mistakes in the even in the name of the thinker, that might reflect poorly on your marks, and it might give an impression that the core part of your syllabus is not completely taken care of. Secondly, let's see this screenshot here. This is again a snippet from an answer that was already attempted in our answer writing program. So, challenges and scope of sociology, and here the candidate talks about people with higher status, easy access to healthcare. So, this is not a challenge thrown by the pandemic, right? And again, since this is a 10 marker, it might not make much sense to incorporate it here. So please be careful about what not to write in an answer, because there might be many lines of content, many types of content that might come to your mind. But then, since you have the limitation of time and space, please be careful about what you are actually incorporating in the answer. Um, let's move on to the conclusion part now. So, a conclusion is like um, among the most important parts. So, it is normally said that when the examiner first sees your answer, she goes through your introduction and the conclusion first to see whether you are comfortable with writing the basic structures of the answer or not. So the main component of the conclusion is it should be solution oriented or futuristic in nature. So never conclude an answer with criticism. Many candidates write the criticism of the core concept the question is about and in the conclusion part, so it's not advisable to do it. So in this conclusion that we have shared here, it says sociology offers wide perspective to establish cause and effect relationship amidst different actors. So the both the keywords of this question are not quite present in this conclusion. So it is advisable to make reference to the keywords of the question. Like if you can mention how a scope of sociology is dynamic in nature, and it always entails the contemporary problem, and it is very well positioned to accommodate the upcoming problems of the future. Something like this you can incorporate in your conclusion. This is a good example, a very good example, as given by Auguste Comte. To study is to predict is to control, and sociology studies the problem, and then it also predicts the upcoming problem, and then by doing these two things it comes up with a solution to this problem. So this is a very good example. In very nutshell, it effectively sums up the answer. This is another good conclusion. The scope of sociology cannot be used only to address the recent phenomena but also the future. So it is very futuristic in nature. So it it gives a sense to the examiner that you are not only looking at the contemporary problem, but also you have an eye on what can be the possible scenario in future and how you can apply your sociological knowledge in solving the upcoming problems of society. This is another good conclusion. So we have given a special emphasis on the different sections of this answer so that you get to know exactly what to write and what not to write in an answer. Pandemic is a social problem and it needs sociological ways. Example, role of state, role of society, changing social trends in the form of social distancing. So it actually makes a reference to what all sociology studies, state, society, social trends. So in a way, without actually mentioning the keywords, it makes a reference to the keywords of the answer. So this is another good way to conclude this answer. Okay, now coming to what we have seen the live snippets from the answers that have been attempted on this question. So, what is our takeaway? How to go about this answer? First of all, please introduce this concept of scope of sociology. What is its definition? Whether it is dynamic in nature or not, and then you can quickly mention that solving contemporary issues has always been a part of the scope of sociology. That is one of the reasons why it established itself as a different discipline of social science. This will ensure a smooth transition to the actual demand of the question, which is about the pandemic, the challenges thrown by the pandemic. Now, move on to the body of the answer. Mention the challenges thrown by the pandemic. As we have explained, you can make a table with two columns. You can mention the challenges thrown by the pandemic in column 1 and then link it to the scope of sociology in column 2. Now, coming to the conclusion, you can mention how sociology can help gauge the impact of pandemic on different sections of the society and how it can help in policy making. Thereby, it underlines the need to incorporate sociologists in uh, policy making to address these pandemic issues. So that way, you are linking your sociological knowledge to policy making and governance because you will be joining after your selection as a civil servant and you will be an active part in implementation and formulation of policies. So this will give a very good impact on the examiner and this would help you score that extra 1 to 2 mark in this answer. Answer writing is an incremental process. It's not like you can be a master in sociology from day one. Let's go back to the first slide that we had shared. Right now, you might be in this stage. Please don't worry about the fact that your uh, answer writing content is not organized. Please scribble whatever you know, no matter how off the mark it is, with continuous feedback and attempting the answers. Your answers will improve gradually, and if you are able to maintain consistency, it will one day be aligned with the actual demand of the question. So please don't worry about that at all. So, oh, for all other answer writing and current affairs or static and current affairs courses, you can visit our website, reliableandvalid.com. If you have any query on answer writing or anything related to sociology, we will mention our email in the description. Uh, you are free to drop an email. We will try to respond it at the earliest possible. And please start writing. I mean, there might be a lot of inertia to start answer writing. Please overcome them and start scribbling whatever you know after you have read the first few topics. Don't wait for your syllabus to complete to start answer writing, because the syllabus is never complete. Start answer writing, seek feedback, and then before attempting the next question, go through the feedback comments so that you optimize on an incremental basis and you gradually master this art of answer writing. Thank you so much.